Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias the Guy. So, throat's starting to get a little bit better. You're going to have to mind, I do have a frog still in there. Every now and then it pops out, so bear with me. Today's episode is, well, Poilievre had a presser. And mainstream propaganda is already using the typical sound bites and video clips in order to make it, well, to make him look bad and to push their agenda. As well as a bunch of things that are happening throughout all of the legacy, through different little articles and different ways of them promoting their ideology, all combined is just, well, it's propaganda. Now, instead of just kind of going over the entire presser and breaking it down, it's dawned on me that, well, this is a great time to expose Canada to what it has allowed itself to become. And in this instance, I'm going to break it down to how, well, what the West is feeling and why the separatist movement is exploding. We've seen generational unfairities, purposeful abuses. They have milked us, beat us, trampled us, legislated us, regulated us, all on behest of outside influence. Now, I'm just going to use the oil and gas and a little bit of the fishing industry to kind of expose what a lot of Canadians don't see. Now, I am a separatist. I have been for a long time, especially after I realized that the turd won his second election. It had sealed to me that there was no hope left in Canada. And now with the government subsidizing all of the media and the Liberals still being allowed to be in power, with all of the information out there, previous episodes, as well as a lot of other great independent media outlets trying to get the truth out. I don't think it's fixable. I'm going to try, but when it comes to the vote, I'm voting to leave. Now, hopefully this episode enlightens a lot of my viewers and subscribers and followers that don't live within the prairies. And I know some of them have written to me and stated that they totally understand. And actually a lot of them have asked for information on how to move out here and become part of this new great nation that will come. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And I will get to that. I will be doing an episode on how to deal with towns and how actually life is so much better out here. The only problems we have out here are federally. Other than that, we do pretty good. We have battled a lot of the socialists, especially Saskatchewan, and after a couple generations of living with socialist control, have finally punted them to the curb. And it's because of independent media. And now with this new digital media, it's growing more and more. So without further ado, let's dive into Poilievre. And I'm just going to blanket you with a pile of information that a lot of you probably don't know. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm monetized, but I don't have enough followers or subscribers to actually make any money. So what happens is all of my videos, all of the viewing that goes to those videos, and all of the hours that those videos are watched slowly add up. That combined with the amount of subscribers I have will slowly make me able to make some money. Now, I've got a long ways to go. So I have to try to be very particular on not to use copyright. And I've won a lot of battles, and I've lost some battles. But I believe, and the reason I started this channel is that if I need to sacrifice the monetization of an episode, I will do it for you so that you, my viewers, have access to this information. And as always, I am one, if not the only. I still haven't found anybody else that does it. And if you know of any good independent journalists, independent citizen journalists, independent anybody that puts all of the links in their description, let me know. Because I'm here for one thing, to be totally open and transparent and give you just the facts, just the truth. Sorry, so sorry. That's why I'm here. Now, like I said, you're going to have access to a lot of links and a few very key documentaries that I'm saying Canada, all of Canada needs to watch. Let's get started.
It's great to be here back in my hometown, and thanks to EnQuest and STEP for hosting us at this incredible facility. This where they make pumps, fracking equipment, well service equipment, battery storage equipment that they sell all around the world. They have operations south of the border, but also on other sides of the oceans. But they say, they were just walking in and their management told me that all of their best brain power is right here in Calgary, Alberta. Why does that not surprise any of us? It's incredible. And this is exactly the kind of business that could be and should be tripling, quadrupling in size because of our massive natural resources, the third biggest supply of oil on Earth. We're the fifth biggest supplier of natural gas. We have the biggest supply of uranium. We have the biggest supply of fresh water that runs through incredible turbines to produce hydroelectricity in other regions of the country. We have not one, not two, but not three, but four coastlines that are either oceanic or lead to the ocean. We have the biggest and best supply of resources anywhere on Earth. We should be the richest nation on Earth, and yet here we are.
Gonna fast forward it a little wee bit past the French crap.
Very much, everyone. It's, as I said at the outset, we're with these incredible workers who have amazing brain power. They are electricians, welders, mechanics, engineers. This is a business that is among the most advanced in the world in battery storage, well service, fracking pumps, and other highly advanced technology. And I want to recognize the incredible team we have of MPs: Pat Kelly, Greg McLean, Dalwinder Gill, Amanpreet Gill, John Barlow, David McKenzie, David Bexty, and the great Stephanie Kuzi. I think Stephanie's the MP for this area. Are you not? This is not who? This is. Oh, this is Jazz. Jazz isn't here, but so you're going to have to step in for him then. You'll do that. But an incredible team of great Conservative MPs who are fighting for this country here in Calgary and across the land. And the reason we are here is to announce the Canadian Sovereignty Act and to make a call to action. A conservative government would have acted more quickly to protect the sovereignty of our country. Under the Liberal government, that sovereignty has been eroded by policies that block our development, tax our people, and make us uncompetitive. The Canadian Sovereignty Act would move us in the opposite direction. It seeks to legalize economic development, reward those who build, protect Canadian innovation, and get shovels in the ground on major nation-building projects between now and March the 14th, the one-year anniversary of Mark Carney taking office. The problem, of course, is that Donald Trump has imposed unjustified and unjustifiable tariffs on our economy and our people. Now, Mark Carney promised that he would handle Donald Trump. That's a quote. He said that he would negotiate a win with Donald Trump. He said that the deal would be done by July the 21st, and then he said it would be done by August the 1st. Those promises were not kept. The tariffs have actually doubled since Mark Carney became Prime Minister, promising that he would get results. The promises have not been kept, and meanwhile, Canada's economy gets weaker. The deficit is now bigger under Carney than it was under Trudeau. Inflation is rising, home building is falling. Tens of billions of dollars of net investment have left Canada since he took office. Not a single major pipeline or natural gas facility, new one, has been identified for approval by the Carney government, and we're going in the exact wrong direction. In fact, there are 9 major energy projects right now that mining projects that are waiting for federal approval, many of them backed by Indigenous people. It now takes 18 years to get a mine approved in Canada. The Liberal government has killed $670 billion of resource projects. 16 major projects are dead. Their emissions cap is going to kill, according to the parliamentary budget officer, 54,000 jobs that will vaporize $20.5 billion of GDP. And these are all self-imposed, self-inflicted attacks by the Liberal government on our economy. On housing, Mr. Carney promised the fastest and biggest buildup of housing since the Second World War, that he would double home building. Since that time, home building has actually gone down in Canada, and according to his own housing agency, it will fall next year and the year after that. It will not even be half of the 500,000 annual builds that he has promised. So far, he's still trying to set up a new bureaucracy with an awkwardly named Build Canada Homes, because he hasn't even set up the office. He hasn't built an office or built the bureaucracy yet, let alone built a single home. We need to get building now. And that's why the Conservative proposal for a Sovereignty Act will take action immediately. In this fall, we will introduce a motion calling on the government to put forward this legislation. The Sovereignty Act will legalize pipeline and other major projects by repealing the anti-development law C-69. It will legalize shipping Canadian energy off the northwest coast of BC by repealing C-48. It will axe the industrial carbon tax, something the Europeans are doing, and given that our competitors in America have no industrial carbon tax, it is untenable to force our people and our industries to pay this tax. We will get rid of the oil and gas cap that kills jobs. We will get rid of the ban on plastics, the petrochemical industry that produces our plastics. The plastics themselves are essential, and so are the jobs that go along with it. This, by the way, this plastics ban is not about, it's just saving your straw. It's about saving you about $400 or $500 a year in food that would otherwise go bad because it would not have plastic to preserve it. And we have a wonderful Alberta-based petrochemical sector that contributes to plastics that we need to protect. We'll get rid of liberal censorship laws that prevent our energy companies from talking about their incredible achievements and their environmental stewardship. We will legalize into the future your right to drive a gas or diesel-powered truck or car by repealing the liberal EV mandate. All of this will be in one bill. Next, we're going to reward those who build. We'll get rid of the capital gains tax when you reinvest your proceeds here in Canada. This will cause a boom in Canadian investment. Here in Canada, we get about half the investment per worker as they do in the United States of America. We get about 15 grand of investment per worker in Canada. In the States, it's 28 grand, both measured in US dollars. No wonder that the American economy is leaving us behind. We need to reward investment by letting people who sell one asset and reinvest the money in Canada do so without capital gains tax. We will give free trade bonuses to the provinces, paying them the economic benefit that results from them opening their markets to fellow Canadians. We'll protect innovation by requiring in this law that the minister do a review and present a plan to stop the mass sell-off of Canadian inventions, discoveries, and innovations. We pay for all these incredible technological breakthroughs in Canada, often with tax dollars that subsidize it at university research and elsewhere, and then it's sold off to the Americans. And we become dependent on them for the technology that we ourselves invented. Finally, outside of the bill, we are making a call to action. Today, Conservatives are calling on Prime Minister Carney to have pipeline construction underway for at least 2 projects and to have at least 1 new natural gas liquefaction project and a road to the Ring of Fire in Ontario under construction by the first anniversary of him taking office. The Prime Minister can and must do this, and he can do it by consulting First Nations as required under Section 35 of the Constitution. Now, you might say, this is too ambitious. How could you possibly get a pipeline under construction in mere months? Well, he's been in office already since last March, and he said, and I quote, we need to think big and act bigger. We need to do things previously thought impossible at speeds we haven't seen in generations. I couldn't agree more. That doesn't happen through meetings, through plans and speeches and forums and press releases. It happens through action. We need shovels in the ground, and we need deadlines to make those shovels dig and get things done. This is a test of leadership. Now is a time for action. We're calling on the Prime Minister to live up to his words and the very boastful promises that he made during the election. We do this because we want to put our country first. We want Canada to be truly economically self-sufficient and sovereign. And we want this to be once again a country where hard work earns a powerful paycheck that gives people a great life and an affordable home on a safe street. That was the Canadian promise that the country made me when I was growing up here in Calgary, Alberta, about 10 or 15 minutes from where we are right now. And I want that promise for every single Canadian. That is our purpose. This is our plan. Let's get it done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from the floor.
Oh, you're holding. Okay. G'day, Emma Graney with the Globe and Mail.
Thank you.
Question here: when you're talking about getting pipelines built, there are no projects being proposed right now. There's none on the table. BC has already said, "Hey, we don't really want a new oil pipeline." How do you overcome those kinds of hurdles? And just on the tariff question, which counter tariffs do you reckon should be removed?
Thank you very much. I think there's 3 questions there. First 2, that's okay. It was well executed, a hat trick. Let's start with the chicken and egg problem. So this is, the opponents of pipelines are using this very cleverly. They're saying, well, we can't change the rules to allow a pipeline because there's no pipeline proposed. That's because the rules don't allow pipelines to get built. So you have, for example, C-69 that, according to the Pipeline Association, means you'll never get one approved. Then you have the energy cap, which means that Alberta will never be able to produce enough oil to put in a new pipeline. And then you have the shipping ban that prevents that oil from going anywhere. And then, you know, the NDP and Liberals say, well, nobody wants to build a pipeline, so we can't approve one. Well, of course, nobody wants to build anything in Canada because the law makes it impossible. So that's why the Canadian Sovereignty Act will legalize building pipelines, producing energy, and putting it on ships. And when you do that, you will have pipeline construction like you do all around the world. I'm just looking at these incredible projects that have been done in other countries around the world. You've got the Eemshaven LNG terminal in the Netherlands. Went from plan to completion in 6 months. The gas grid LNG terminal in Finland, agreement signed in May of 2022, started construction in August of 2022. That's 2 months later. The Wilhelmshaven, Germany project that was announced, this is an import terminal for LNG, announced in March 2022, completed in December 2022. This is how things get done everywhere else in the world. Here in Canada, nothing gets done because Liberals ban things from getting done. We're proposing to legalize fast energy production, construction, and exportation, and that is why we need this bill. So we can do it. Let's get rid of this chicken and egg distraction that the Liberals have imposed. As for Mr. Eby opposing him, I, with the greatest respect, I have nothing against him personally. I think he's a nice guy, but one man can't block a project. British Columbians want a pipeline, Albertans want a pipeline, Canadians want a pipeline. We can't wait till everybody's on side. I mean, there's some people out there who don't think Elvis is dead. We can't get everybody to agree on any basic fact, even the basic fact that we need a pipeline. So you're going to need national leadership, and yeah, that means that some people are going to protest, maybe chain themselves to a tree, but we have to push through that if we're ever going to get anything done.
Now, there's a lot to take in on what he just said. And rather than interrupt him and then interrupt him, I just wanted to let him kind of do his spiel. And at the end, how he threw the "people think Elvis is alive" was a great analogy to the reality of the lies that have been fed, propagated, and now have taught generations lies. This is all done through political interference, through, well, corporate interference and through sponsorship of what was once, I mean, you're dealing with organizations who think they're out to do good, which 100 years ago they, for the most part, did, but have now all become lobbyists with hidden agendas, spreading lies and misinformation. Let's just kind of dig into a little wee bit on what he was saying. So, we got to go a little wee bit back in time. This is from 2012. Tides and critics clash over the charity numbers and claims of transparency. This is, and again, as always, I post all the links. You'll have all of this information at your fingertips. An environmental charity at the center of a climaxing battle between green groups and the conservative government opened its books on Wednesday, coming out on the offensive with an unprecedented, detailed account of its key grant recipients and major international donors. Tides Canada, a Vancouver group that runs a grant-making foundation and charity that backs environmental and social justice protests, received $10.9 million in foreign funding in just 2011, amounting to 45% of the group's total revenue, according to Accounting Breakdown. Now, I urge you, read all these articles. We move on. The tides have turned. This is now 2010. In late October, a group of environmental and social... Oh, did I get these in the wrong order? I hope I didn't. Yes, I did. Sorry. Wrong order. In late October, a group of environmental and social justice activists met in a remote lodge in Courts Island, 150 kilometers north of Vancouver, up the Georgia Strait. The four-day gathering was billed as a social change institute, an event that says it gathers seasoned and emerging leaders with thinkers and trainers from the change-making world. And it's been happening for years. The lodge is called the Hollyhock Center, a new retreat known for its holistic healing, blah, 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 blah. And of course, sacred sexuality seminars, right? This is the beginning of this whole woke movement. This is all part of an agenda. Stop before you conjure up images of hippies dreaming of a utopian free love world. The Social Change Institute is a magnet for professionals, professional activists, professional environmentalists, and yes, professional businesses, people, and politicians. One does not sign up for the SCI, one applies and is accepted or not. The 12-hectare center, blah, 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 blah. Now, this, okay, so I kind of screwed up on the order. So this is the beginning, and then all of a sudden, the realization of, wait a minute, there's outside money that is funding. Now, this previous article does mention that Tides has been pumping money into environmental and social activism groups that have been fighting fish farms in British Columbia, the oil sands in Alberta, logging in the boreal forest, and dozens of other anti-industrial campaigns. Most any prominent green group you might think of has probably been on the Tides lists of recipients. Now again, I urge you, read this article. I'm just going to keep on building on this, okay? Now, he said how one man shouldn't be able to stand in the way, especially if he thinks Elvis is alive. Now, we've had infiltration in our politics. This infiltration is a lot deeper than most people think. The NDP connections to the Tides Foundations are a cause for concern. This is another really good article. A new report outlining how millions in foreign funds impacted Canada's 2015 federal election. The NDP government needs to do more to separate itself from the Tides Foundation, which was one of the worst offenders, the Wildrose official opposition said. Now this is going down in Alberta, and Alberta saw the takeover of the Socialist Party, which they're still paying debt, and trying to remove all of the bullcrap legislation that they put through to shut down any business that would affect the bottom line of especially American corporations or global interests. It doesn't stop. The Tides Foundation washes over Canada. Another great article. Tides is not the only organization in the anti-oil sands effort, but it rivals the Rockefeller Brothers Fund as the best known. This paper profiles 51 Canadian organizations that the Tide Foundation gave $20,000 or more in 2016. The examination gives some indication of the scope of interest held by these organizations, their impacts, and sometimes other interesting details. Great articles. Lots of information here. Stuff that's very hard to find on Google or any of the other search engines. You gotta dig deep. You gotta punch in the right words. I use the dark web. Ooh, scary. Remember, the government doesn't want anybody to have free internet, where when you type in something, like Google used to be, what you typed in comes up. You don't get that anymore. This is all part of the propaganda. This is all part of Canadians' everyday life, which has been even more censored than ever before, thanks to the fascist liberals passing censorship bills under the guise of protecting children. Bullcrap. Oh, who's this? Minister of Environment and Climate Strategy, Vancouver, BC, NDP, Honorable George Heyman. Well, what board did he sit on? Interesting. That would be the Sierra Club of BC. Who's the Sierra Club? We're going to expose them really quickly. Let's keep moving. This is a document. In this document, it shows how the NDP campaign finance originates from the registered charity. It was a letter sent in. Again, you're going to have information to this. Good luck finding it on your own. That's why I'm here. And with the thundercrackers that are going, this is why I'm so late, because my computers and everything keep shutting down, backups. It's been a nightmare all day. It shows how dark money from these third-party organizations, so-called charities, are being funneled into the Liberals and NDPs. In this case, the NDP. We're not done. Oh no. Remember this guy, George Heyman? Oh, wow. Read up on this guy. Interesting. What panel did he sit on? Oh, the Sierra Club. Interesting. Keep going. Dean Murdoch. Where did he sit? Check it out. Served as the chair of the Sierra Club. The NDP in BC, a lot like the federal Liberals, and a lot of the Liberals, especially Ontario, saw this. That's how Wynne took power. She took power by dark money and outside advertising. Now, this is the trick, which I'm going to allow Eli Ross to kind of straighten out here in a little bit. They use the system against the people. Instead of running ads for Wynne or for Horgan or for EB or for Trudeau or for Carney, they run attack ads against anybody who isn't part of their dark agenda. If you aren't on board, you are going to slaughter. This is then propagated by mainstream media, the state-funded propaganda arm of a fascist, socialist, communistic dictatorship government. These are all outside countries, but in particular, through the United States, old money, who is trying to control and take proprietorship of what Canada has. And they've been doing it successfully. How's the steel industry doing? How's the automotive sector? Aluminum, copper. What other industries are under attack? Oh, wood. These are all parts of them finishing the takeover of Canada. When Trump said 51st state, he wasn't going to march an army across. He already knew the state that we were in. It's only inevitable that we're going to be absorbed because we have allowed ourselves to walk with blinders on. We have allowed our schools to teach lies. I have information on these terabytes that I have got of different types of, well, call it curriculum, in which they hammer conservatives, outright lie, and scare the bejesus out of kids about ever voting a conservative. This is why the demographic is slowly changing. It used to be that about 20 or 30% of the kids who left school were left as conservatives. And then usually the tide started turning at around the age of 30, 35. All of a sudden there's a huge curve where people went from liberal to conservative because they saw the abuse of their money. They saw the abuse of power. Now the demographics are changing. It's less and less conservatives are leaving school. Kids are leaving school as conservatives. And the gap between how old they are before they flip and realize is getting older and older. This is because the brilliance of the marketing and propaganda that Canadians are suffering every day. And it's not just Canada. The UK, France, Germany. There are hundreds of countries that are suffering the same thing. Just none, as far as I know, are as bad as what they have done to Canada. Now the UK, they're leading the way here lately, but trust me, their society is about to collapse. There are every day hundreds of thousands of people protesting on the streets. We may very well see a civil war in the UK. Kirsch is I believe, the last of what that democracy is today. He is going to lead a revolt against him. Or I should say, he is going to be the reason there will be a revolt against the system. Hopefully, Canada realizes the stupidity and the brainwashing that we've been under for all of these years. Now, back to where we were. Let's keep going. How about Laurel Collins of the NDP? She loves going on all of these different little chats and, she likes to affiliate herself with places like the Sierra Club. Now, I'm only hammering on Sierra right now, but this also follows into the Rockefeller. This ties into the Tides. This ties into... There are numerous amounts. And like I showed you earlier, there's over 51 that are just known to have got over $20,000 from the Tides Foundation, which is dark money. Now, millions in foreign funds were spent in the 2015 federal election to defeat the Harper government. This report goes into great detail, and it explains a lot how they abused the Elections Act, how Tides Foundation donated $1.5 million of U.S. money to Canadian third parties in election year, how they use kids, how they use different organizations. The We organization, hello, this is a propaganda network. All of the speakers are usually part of organizations that have ties to Tides, George Soros, all of the rest of these outside dark money, trying to hold their wealth and gain more wealth on behest and on the backs of enslaving Canadians. Let's not forget, this is a great article. Was Trudeau placed into office by George Soros and the Tides Foundation? This is something I was already aware of. At the time, I had just a couple Facebook things where I was writing articles, and a couple of them actually got copied, in which I ended up sending letters and didn't have the money to sue, but there were news agencies that almost used my words and my homework, well, word for word, which I had to end up sitting back on, and that's why I ended up using this format, so that, well, now I have a fighting chance, a timeline, a stamp, my face, my channel, to kind of fight. I was screaming about this because I saw what was going on. I saw a lot of the dark money, as well as the propaganda, and how the news agencies were getting worse and worse. They were firing anybody or early retiring anybody who spoke against the agenda. This 36-page report entitled Elections Canada Complaint Regarding Foreign Interference in the 2015 Canadian Election alleges third parties worked with each other to bypass federal election spending limits, all of which appears to be in contravention to the Canada Elections Act. Now, like I was saying, they're brilliant. Just like I broke the ad scam, which is it's a advertising firm that pretty much makes 95% of their money from government federal grants, who all of the people that work on this organization have ties to or are part of the Liberal or NDP, the Uniparty. Through that, I exposed Monk. I exposed a whole bunch. There were other people that stole a whole bunch of information on me. There were one or two that stole it, but went even further. One actually had the ability and the time and found the money trail. This is why we always say, please like, share, and subscribe and get our voices out there. People need to see this. They need to actually be exposed to reality, to the truth. So sorry, just the truth. Now again, great article. Exposes a pile of stuff. We'll let Eli dabble into this a little wee bit more. Now, let's just kind of dig into... There is a documentary done. This is a brilliant documentary. And she stumbled, doing investigative journalism, she stumbled onto the anti-oil sands dark money. I'm going to kind of just let her get into it. I am attaching, as always. And I beg you, watch this entire documentary. If you've never heard of it, thank the propaganda for hiding it, because they have tried every which way possible to destroy the integrity of this journalist and hide the actual reality of what she discovered. And through her, other people, serious, true Canadians, ex-liberals, they left the party when they realized, like Eli Ross and like a whole bunch of others who fled the NDP, who fled the Liberals, who fled these organizations, once they actually confronted reality, saw the documentary, or were interviewed by her and shown the documentation and all of the information that she had. People who were willing to open their eyes and ears to truth, which is a major problem in Canada today. A lot of people, they don't want to hear it. They have their elbows up, their heads shoved in the ground. And we need to end this. We need to have open debate, and we need to be able to share information. So again, like, share, and subscribe, please. Let's get started. This is called Over a Barrel.
But not in the United States.
The U.S. is producing more oil than ever. Most of that extra production comes from the Permian Basin in West Texas, making the state America's top oil producer. More and more of that oil is making its way through the port of Corpus Christi and around the world.
We expect our exports to double It is amazing to double between now and 2020.
We're actually pushing the oil industry to take advantage of the opportunities that they've already got.
Tremendous to think that we've gone from potentially being a big natural gas importer and even more of an oil importer to being the world's largest producer of petroleum and natural gas for 5 years running.
Here in Canada, we can't build pipelines. We can't even build a natural gas pipeline to help China get off coal.
Becoming a common occurrence in our city, a protest was organized in opposition to all pipeline production in the region, not just Enbridge.
No! Tarzan! No! Tarzan!
I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying, keep it in the ground.
Woo! Without pipelines, Canada can only sell oil and natural gas to the United States. So the US has a monopoly on Canada and no incentive to pay world prices. Last fall, it got so bad that Canadian oil producers were losing $50 on every barrel of oil.
The price of a barrel of oil from Alberta's oil sands has fallen to a record low.
The problem is the widening gap between Canadian and US produced oil. Take West Texas Intermediate, an industry benchmark, and it closed today around $56 a barrel. But Alberta's Western Canadian Select was selling around $13 a barrel.
Our energy sector in Canada is distressed, and at the same time, the U.S. energy sector is booming. And some of our homegrown leading businesses, such as Encana, TransCanada, Enbridge, are shifting their focus to the United States. Investment capital is exiting, and I have direct knowledge that some of our best equipment and some of our most talented workers are exiting.
Canadian oil producers have a terrible problem
So if we're going to
getting
produce
oil to market.
oil, we might as well get world prices for it. Not subsidize the price of gas in the United States to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. Building pipelines is about breaking the American monopoly that has Canada over a barrel. We never used to talk about pipelines. They were out of sight, out of mind, rarely in the news. But they are now.
I say no, you say pipeline. No! Pipeline! No! Pipeline!
The reason for that is a campaign. It's called the Tar Sands campaign, and I stumbled across it 9 years ago in 2010, June of 2010, during the course of some other work that I was doing on the funding of another controversy, the fish farm fuss.
Now, before we get going too far, I want to show you something. This should be, well, taught in schools on what happens when you have a government that is in cahoots, owned, funded, and invested in American interests and corporations. Take a look very carefully at our pipelines. These are them. Northern Gateway, rejected. As I exposed on previous episodes, who invested in the takeover of the pipeline Trudeau did build? Well, that would be Brookfield and a few other companies that have no ties to Canada. Dark money, corporate money, elite money, none of which comes from Canada. Well, a few families are invested into it, and they all live, down around that rich area that control, the 3% geography that controls the entirety of Canada. So all of our oil goes down where? To the States. We have been manipulated. We have been, and it's not just liberals. This has been going on in politics for a long time. For those of you who studied, and I said earlier, the Avro Arrow. It's a great example. Now, Poilievre pointed this out, how the States always seems to be able to take our technology. He sees and knows what's going on. He's trying his damnedest to keep this country together. And he understands why, because he sees the influence of dark money that has came into Canada through all political parties, but now through the control of the NDP and Liberal. There is no other parties. And even the Conservatives have, well, removed almost all of the people who are vested in American interests. There's a few left. I'll probably be naming them in future episodes as this progresses. Now, this isn't all of it. We can keep on going. This is the actual map of the oil. Check it out very carefully. Now, I'm going to go back to pipelines, back to oil. There's more. This is a list. While US-backed groups like Tides Canada continue to seed energy misinformation in Canada, 2020-21 alone will bring enough new Texas Permian pipelines to move 120% as much oil production in all of Western Canada. Pipelines move what? Oil. Whose oil? A vast majority is Canadian oil, which they buy at a huge discount. You can thank the politicians for allowing this to happen. You can thank the schools for teaching misinformation. You can thank propaganda for teaching misinformation, passing on their agenda. And just the constant lies and dark money through advertising and all the rest of it that people have to succumb to every day. And they're not aware it's even there. Again, why I started the channel. I've studied propaganda. This is why I saw this over a decade ago. We're not done. This is a newer pipeline chart. Now, let's go back and take a look at Alberta Oil. Let's take a look at the newer pipeline chart. Are you seeing this? Sinking in, right? Who just bought the largest pipeline system in North America, which so happens to be in the States? I exposed it on previous episodes. Brookfield, who started the deal in negotiation. Carney, who's invested heavily in all of the different parts of the American industry that are profiting off of Canada's slave labor and our resources. Carney, Liberals, Brookfield, the Laurentian elite, and the global cabal. All done through the Tides Foundation.
Tar sands oil.
While I was still trying to figure out the funding of the campaign against salmon farming, I stumbled across these three little words. Tar sands campaign. That was back in June of 2010. One of the things that got my attention is that the tar sands campaign was funded by the Rockefellers via one of their charities, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. We know this for sure because it says so in their tax returns.
No, I go back to the funders. And it's so hypocritical that the funders from the United States who made their fortune in oil and gas now send money into Canada to shut down Canadian oil and gas.
And in 2008, they helped launch the Tar Sands campaign. Another billion-dollar foundation, California's Hewlett Foundation, also helps fund the pipeline fight. Based on some of the tax records we've obtained, the American money adds up to millions of dollars, much of it funneled to Canadian environmental groups, often through another like-minded U.S. charity called the Tides Foundation.
Back in 2010, when I first...
Now, did you notice who ran that? That was CBC. They were still highly partisan back there. They were very liberal orientated, but they also had, well, they had a more slightly balanced. You had people like Rex Murphy and a few of the others that were on there. And the corporate identity itself, the infrastructure of it, was a lot more, even though they were always left-leaning, had a conservative voice. So they were more prone to not pick sides and actually show news stories. This is before the huge takeover, which started in 2011, 2012. By 2014, they had removed almost every single centrist or conservative. There were zero libertarians. We were the first ones they wanted to get rid of. Then they slowly started cleaning house. That's when they really became a 100% mouthpiece propaganda arm. And by 2014, the promises from the Liberal Fascist Party, the new Liberal Fascist Party, promising them money, huge vast amount of money, really tipped the scale.
Stumble across this campaign, there was virtually no publicly available online information about it. You could Google tar sands campaign and you got nothing. So it wasn't entirely clear what this campaign was about. But now it is, because Corporate Ethics posted a description of the tar sands campaign at its website. It said that from the very beginning, the campaign strategy was to landlock what they call the tar sands, so that the crude could not reach the international market where it could get a higher price per barrel.
Then there's the American charity Corporate Ethics, also enlisted in the fight. Its website reveals what all those US dollars actually accomplished. The campaign successfully landlocked the Canadian tar sands industry by blocking the approval of all major proposed pipelines in Canada and the US. The controversy from this campaign contributed to political victories at the provincial and national levels in Canada in 2015 that led to bold climate commitments by Canadian leaders.
Back in January of 2019, CBC reported on the tar sands campaign, and within days, Corporate Ethics rewrote the entire description of the tar sands campaign.
Now, I went looking. I remember that entire CBC clip. And it was very biased and followed up by lots of little lies. Well, white lies. Agenda. So even though they had reported on it like she said, try and find that episode. It's gone. I went digging for hours to find it. I find all of the anti-tar sands. I don't find any with that small docu clip. But like I said, I remembered it because when they did it, I was already aware of all of what was going on. And even though, and the reason I'm stating this is that even though CBC did expose that, it was a snippet of reality that within the same little that they did on it went right back into their anti-oil rhetoric, promoting all of these bills that the government was either implementing or pushing through. So I don't want any of my viewers to think, well, look, CBC actually did it. I am going to find it. And I'm going to keep looking because I need my audience to see how CBC manipulates, how propaganda. And I really wanted to use it in this episode. But like I said, they deleted it. It's gone. So thanks to documentaries like this, and who knows, I may find a longer version of it in another independent media source somewhere. But hey, if you have the time, try to find the clip. Send me the link so I can show all of my subscribers and viewers what actually they said during it. So yes, they did expose that, but they sure didn't do their homework and due diligence and have a non-bias view. So I'm going to call this an episode, part 1. I'm going to finish part 2 tonight. I hope you enjoyed all the information so far. I know it's late. I hope that you have time between this and part 2 to go over a lot of the information that I have just laid down. I have a lot more coming. So, until the next episode, I'm Alias Tagay. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you are, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Check out my store. You can support me by purchasing some pretty cool clothing. Like I said, I've got more coming. You can also support me through donating at CanadianCitizenJournal@gmail.com. That's all for now, people. Stay tuned for part 2. The takeover of Canada, I guess.